I am going to call to order our Board of Selectmen meeting for August 5th, 2025 at 6:31 p.m. and we will start with the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we've got a few I've got to do a roll call attendance. So Eric here.
Kim here.
Carl Pike here.
He's
Yep, I'm in second round. Don here.
Thanks, Don. All right, a few announcements. So this meeting is recorded by the local scene. Anyone intending to make an audio or video recording of this meeting should notify the chair at this time. Marcia, no? Financial assistance applications are available on the town's website or by calling the Selectmen's office. There are several boards and commissions with vacancies. To see a complete list of the openings, please visit our website at kingstonma.gov. If you are interested in serving, please contact the Selectmen's office at 781-585-0501. Also check our website for any additional events or notices at kingstonma.gov. Before we go to open forum, were there any other announcements that I'm not thinking? Oh, next week we've got the
National Night Out.
That's right, the National Night Out over at the
Sort of behind the middle school, sort of in the back.
right.
I think it's 4 to 7, correct? I think that's what they said. Check the website for the exact time.
Yes.
I do not have it in front of me at the moment.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Carl, do you have anything?
No.
No. All right, open forum. We've got one person. Marcia, do you have anything you want to say? All right. Our appointments. So next steps on filling the town administrator position. I'm not sure that I don't think we brought it up at our last meeting, but we did receive a resignation from our town administrator.
On Wednesday, that's why it didn't come up in our last meeting.
Right. So we did receive that on Wednesday, who's taking a position in same position in Fairhaven. So still by the ocean. You'll still have, it looks like a lovely town. We wish you the best of luck there. And we also thank you for, we'll have more to say at future meetings, but definitely lots of thanks to you on working on all the projects we've had going on here in town.
And continuing to work on those projects in this,
Right.
this time period as well.
Right. We've had a lot of things going on over the past few years that you've been here. So again, thank you. So we need to talk about what are the next steps.
So can we start with the current contract has a 90-day period where when we receive a written notification, Keith remains employed through the town of Kingston through 90 days. However, if we can find an interim or a replacement before then, he's asked the board to consider that. I don't think we're in a position to discuss that now, but I just wanted to bring that up because folks may not be familiar with his contract terms and what that says.
Right. So I think that also segues into whether we would need an interim TA or if we're waiting to just hire a permanent TA. And I think that process should not try to be rushed. Like even if we took the entire 90 days, I don't think that's enough time. I think we need to be realistic. And in the past, when we've had openings, we've had interim TAs. So I think it makes sense for us to look for an interim town administrator, as well as moving forward on a search for a permanent town administrator. But we need to talk about what does that look like? What is the process going to be? We don't have an assistant town administrator, so it's not like we would be, some towns might have an assistant TA that would just move into that role. So we're going to need to do a search. And in the past, go ahead.
I was just going to say, one thing I just want to mention too, it would be ideal, I don't know if this is possible, but it would be ideal if we could find someone interested in starting, before the 90 days is up per his, Keith's request, but also, I would love to see someone in interim role that could potentially serve in the long term, potentially. There have been a lot of other communities near us that have conducted recent searches. There are a lot, those interviews, those final interviews get, as Keith knows, get published for everyone to be able to see them. So, I mean, there are a lot of potential candidates already out there.
Right.
The other thing I think we need to discuss as part of this is when we had an interim come in briefly in 2020, the law firm found the interim for us. We weren't part of that process at all, other than saying, yes, we agree, we're gonna have this person come on, and they're getting paid X number of dollars. I don't know if the law firm would be involved in that way now, but finding an interim is obviously a short-term solution. So that's something else for our board to think about, is how we want to do that. And then lastly, the other thing I think we need to discuss is whether we want to consider, maybe not now, but in the future, whether or not we want to hire a search firm, whether we think that's necessary. I know we don't have the money for it, so I would probably advocate against it. But that's, I just want to bring
Agreed,
this up.
no, and that's the big item that I was going to bring up next, was whether we do hire a search firm. Personally, because of the financial situation that we're in, I'm leaning against that, and rather, utilizing a search committee internally. Some of you guys were here the last time. Some of you guys were able to interview the previous applicants. It looks like and as you mentioned, Fairhaven had their search process. There are other towns that have gone through the search process. Those interviews are available now, so a lot of the legwork could have been done. I mean, we can take a look at those. There may be additional questions that we might have for candidates that are specific to Kingston. But I think we're in a unique situation where I think there will be more candidates available now than, like, let's say a year ago.
Maybe.
And with the financial situation of the town right now, trying to come up with 15 or 20,000 out of a budget where we don't have that money, we would have to cut something to get that money. I think it makes sense. And we certainly have people, I've had people reach out and said that they would be interested in serving on a search committee. So I just personally feel that we need to be financially prudent, and I think we can do a lot of this work.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Did you pass open forum already? Sorry, I was just hopped on.
Say that again?
Did we pass open forum?
We did.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't on. I'll bring it up next meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Couple of comments that I have.
Yeah, go ahead.
Number one, I would like to see us work with Keith here to, see if we could get to a point where we can, in effect, release him earlier. I would think, from my point of view, that we probably absolutely going to need him for 60 days, so that, maybe we could be targeting something like October 1st instead of October 28th. I also think we should be looking immediately at probably an interim person. But at the same time, I don't think we want to have an interim person in here for a very long period with Keith. That I don't see the need, that I would hope that we get an interim person that's strong enough, they can pick up pretty rapidly, so that no matter what we do, whether it's an interim or a permanent, I do not want to see more than 2 weeks to maybe 30 days overlap. I also think that I like Kim's suggestion that if at all possible, we have an interim that has a possibility of working into a permanent person. I think that can be helpful. The issue of an external search consultant, I've been involved with 2 of them now here in the town. With the Silver Lake superintendent was done by an outsider, at least the first 3 iterations, and then when we brought Keith in here, it was done with an outsider. I would like to say that we don't need to do that. I don't want to spend the money. I suspect it may be something like we get 30 or 45 days down the road, and depending upon what kind of progress we're making, then we may have to make a decision that we don't like. I also believe, and now here's the opposite of what you expect from this conservative financial guy, but when you're talking a $20,000 or $25,000 cost, okay, the town should always be able to find that in a $50 million budget. That I don't care if you have to cut back some overtime somewhere, or you don't buy this equipment, or you do something that when you're dealing with a $50, $60 million budget, you ought to be able to find $25,000 in a push. I also have mixed emotions about what kind of a search committee we want, how much public involvement we want. That I'm not sure that based upon my experience twice here in town, having a lot of public involvement is necessarily a good thing. But I think that's something that the 5-member board needs to, probably end up voting on. So those are my initial thoughts.
I think it does make a lot of sense. I think, I agree with you. I think 2 weeks is probably good, because in the end, and I've done a lot of thinking about this, and I've been involved in this in private industry, and so have you.
Sure.
You know, you have institutional knowledge that needs to be passed on and preserved and whatnot. But we have a lot of people who are, full-time professionals here. We've got fire chief, police chief, we have an HR director, we have finance director, we have a town clerk, treasurer, collector, so all of those people.
Not to mention the folks in the office, too.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. So in the highway department, and everybody here, Tricia, all these people have a lot of institutional knowledge that are going to be passed on. And Keith obviously has quite a bit too. But those other professionals are also going to have a lot of information, and the other boards and whatnot, Water Commission, Sewer Commission. But I think, Keith, what do you think? Do you think a 2-week overlap is reasonable?
Sure, yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
it is. Again, depending on, the person who's coming in, what their capabilities are.
Yep.
I guess from my point of view, over the next few weeks, we've got a fall town meeting in October. I'm working with Kathleen Barrett, our finance director. I've reached out to the school to try to put together a 5-year financial plan to give the board, the finance committee, and the school committee an idea when we have our joint meeting in September, at least from Kathleen and my point of view, where we think we are, where we think we need to be. So the 3 committees can have a discussion on whether or not there needs to be, ideally find a policy that all 3 boards will try to follow consistently across the budget process for 27. Those are, and you've got collective bargaining coming up that you'll have to work with Kate with. But I think a couple of weeks is probably fine.
Okay.
And again, as I've mentioned to the board, I'm a phone call, an email, or a text away. So if I can help whoever's sitting in that chair, I'm always going to be willing to do that.
All right, thank you, Keith. So in the end, I think I agree with a lot of what you said, and including the finding, the money. Could we do it? Yes. I'm just thinking the optics, and when we're literally saying we've got 3,000 and then probably less available under the levy, it's hard to then say, oh, well, let's spend the money when we could do it, I think.
I absolutely agree that any place we don't have to spend money in the next 8 or 10 months, whatever is left, I personally will be charging forward and saying, hey, do we have to spend that?
Right. No, and that's legitimate and fair. And I think your suggestion as well, that we see how we're doing on our own. If it looks like we need to bring somebody in, then we can pivot and make that determination.
And of course, one thing about an interim, that it seems to me we can hopefully control a bit, that let's say we had somebody agree to be an interim next week. Well, maybe we want to see if they are willing to work, 10 hours a week for a few weeks to, work with Keith, as opposed to coming in full-time, because you know, I don't think I want to see a full-time interim next week, so we can say goodbye to Keith by the end of this month, say. And so I think that's kind of a balancing act, that, you know, and that was gonna be one of my questions. If any one of us are interviewing or having very preliminary discussions with somebody who might be interested, like, we had this one resume come in already from somebody interested in being an interim, okay? We need to, I would like to have some kind of guidelines. Am I talking to somebody about being an interim effective August 15th, September 1st, September 15th? That, you know, I think that's a step that we need to understand and hammer out.
Agreed. Agreed. Don, did you have anything you wanted to add right now?
If you don't mind continuing the conversation, I'm about a minute from the building, so I can actually just talk when I get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Kim, do you have any response to Carl, or?
No, I think that all makes sense. I did want to mention, as part of this discussion, the job description. I know when we conducted the search in 2020, we worked with a search firm who interviewed a lot of the staff and us and residents to try to gather information about what they wanted in a town administrator: financial background, communication, transparency, all those buzzwords that you hear in all the interviews. But I think that taking that job description, I realize we may want to look at it and see if there's any changes to be made. It accurately represents what that search company put together based on our community and our feedback and the employee feedback. So just keeping that in mind, if we want to change it, I'd have to be convinced why it's not right.
I spent a couple of hours going through it today, and I think it's more a case of needing some cleanup. That there's some, you know, just some of the grammar is bad. There's
I'm fine with grammar changes, as you know.
duplications. Okay,
That's fine.
Where you know, under, you know, maybe
There's some things we have
supervising
to-
required, supervisor responsibility. It's almost duplicated,
Yeah.
because I find 5 pages to be rather long for a job description. And, you know,
Is that the final one that we used in 2020 that has that? I thought we cleaned that up.
That's
I
the
guess
one
I
that
don't know. That Tina had?
sent out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my point, I think it's a good job description with all the quantity and quality that's in it, but
Yeah.
I just think it needs to be cleaned up.
Yeah.
Like I went through and delete this, delete that.
Headline.
Yeah.
We just have to be careful. Some of the stuff in the job description is required by law. So we
Right.
just want to make sure that we're only cleaning up administrative issues.
I'm sure required by law that we have to
No,
tell a
the
high-level manager whether he can have the strength to move a computer from one side of the room to the other.
I
That's
think-
asinine if that's something that has to be
I
in
think that
there.
actually is something that has to be in there by law.
It is.
It's
just
ridiculous.
that-
I didn't write the law, though, so I can't take credit for that,
It
but.
is, it's ridiculous.
But it does have to be in there,
It
right?
absolutely
Okay,
does.
because that's in my job description as well, at my job, which is also an office job.
Oh,
So,
that's funny.
Hi, Dawn.
welcome.
Sorry for having youth sports.
No.
Control my entire summer.
Priorities.
That's what happens.
Eric, just one thing I guess I'd like to add, if it's
Yeah.
okay with the board. One of the things I think would be important, whether it be just 2 board members, so there's not a posted meeting, you know, maybe meet with the department heads as a group.
Yeah.
And, you know, we meet every day, every Tuesday, there's a board meeting, we have a department head meeting, so they're available, you know, either at 10 o'clock or when we finish, whatever's convenient, but I think it'd be worthwhile to hear what the board has to say about what traits they would like to see, good, bad, or indifferent, and include them in at least the initial discussion. If you
I think that's an excellent point,
you
getting
consider
some
that.
input from department heads.
And I think if we do it as a group rather than one-off, I just think it's going to be more constructive and provide more substance than just one person at a time. So, like I said, I'm happy to get them together whenever you ask me to. But they're,
What time on Tuesdays did you
well,
say?
they start, our department meetings start at 10. And you could come in at 10, you could come in at 11, doesn't really matter, you know, whenever, we'll work
Okay.
around the board's schedule, but I think it'd be important to have a conversation with the board, I don't know,
Okay.
Scott, with the department heads to hear what they have to say, and you can take whatever you want into consideration from there. Thank you.
Okay.
Excuse me. May I ask what we are talking about tonight? I missed that part.
We're talking about hiring a town administrator.
Okay. I assume Keith is leaving, so
Yes.
good luck at your future position, Keith. Whatever that might be, and I'll miss you.
Thank you, Will.
That's nice.
All right, so I may be here next Tuesday. I'll have to, let me get back to you by the end of this week, but
next week either.
we should probably do it sooner rather than later.
I could be available too.
Okay. I mean, Tuesday mornings are usually bad for me, but if we did it at 10, that would be okay, because I could be out and back doing what I need to do at 11.
We could do it at 9:30.
Okay, all right.
Whoever is going has to be willing to take notes, though. So I'm looking at you two boys. If you two are going to do it, one of you has to write
I
down
have
some
liked
things, so
taking
you can bring it
notes.
back and tell us what they said.
Eric takes notes that no one can read, including Eric.
Dad?
So I'm also willing to attend, but I'm sure Missy would say the same thing. I'm sure Carl would say the same thing. So whatever
Well-
works for the department heads, I'm sure two of us
I
will be
can-
able to make it work.
I can
I mean, we can
type
repost.
some notes.
No, because then it won't
Enough
be,
to ask
yeah.
you a meeting, as you
Oh,
want.
so I can,
All right, then let's,
I'll type the notes. That'll do.
Plus, as was mentioned in a prior meeting, sometimes some employees are not as comfortable speaking candidly in this setting.
Right.
It's just
Yep.
not for everybody, so.
Yep.
But my hope is that whoever goes, of the five of us, can bring back a summary
Right.
of the feedback received and what they want most out of the next town administrator.
So we cannot vote on anything tonight, really, in terms of the next steps, because we didn't post any potential votes.
Well, technically you can. Open meeting law allows you to vote on anything that could be reasonably anticipated on the agenda item.
So what I was gonna suggest is, on whether we want a search committee, I don't know if you heard the discussion.
yeah, so, so I guess to be quick with my comments on that. So, search committee, I fully agree that we should try without until we need.
Okay,
I think that's
Without
the right
a
approach.
committee or without a search firm?
Without a search firm.
Okay.
Firm.
yeah,
I think the committee should be extremely tight and
Yeah.
small. And I really think it should probably be more employee-driven, or board-driven.
so one of the things I think that I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm just gonna throw this out there real quick. When we were doing the police chief search, we had, Mark was on that, but obviously he's public safety, so that was very tightly related. So I think, the town clerk reached out, he said he would be interested in, serving on a search committee. So we could, pick probably no more than 2 selectmen,
Yep.
like we did for the police chief, and then whatever else we think would make sense. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I think, a department head or 2.
Yep.
I don't know. Keith, do you have any thoughts on that?
My only thought, I guess, on a department head, I've always found it to be difficult to include an employee who ultimately is gonna be working for the person that they're interviewing and potentially hiring, so.
Yeah, my personal preference would probably be one of the chiefs, because they're not directly, if not both, or,
But they have to, yeah, they have to
I guess
work.
that's kind of what I was thinking when I meant employees. Yeah, we probably don't want to hire someone that would be, or have someone interview that is working under them ultimately.
But it does happen. I mean, my wife,
No,
yeah, in hospitals, I mean, they definitely do that too. But I get the discomfort, and I think it would be fine. But if we get the feedback from the department heads, at least in the beginning, I think that would help.
Yeah.
They'd appreciate that.
HR
Yeah.
Yeah.
involved somehow.
Yep.
The other question I guess I had, and I might have missed this, but an interim to hire, or an interim that could potentially be to hire, how would that work without limiting our field of applicants? Because obviously if we're getting an interim, then it's only people that are unemployed currently. No one's gonna leave their position for a potential.
So my,
Yeah, probably.
my response to that, and then anybody else, would be that we try to search for someone who would also be interested, that we think is a good, strong candidate. But that person's gonna have to understand, if they're committing whatever it is, whatever time period, that we are opening it up to other people. Just not to your point, not everybody would be available to be an interim, but we should allow the
Yeah.
permanent to be open up to just about anybody.
Yeah, I have no problem with an intern coming in and potentially getting a position.
Right.
But I think that whether they're interim or not, they need to fully go through the process that everyone else is going to have to go through to become the full.
Yeah.
Because I think we just limit ourselves, right, by having, especially if we put blinders on and say, oh, this is going well for 2 weeks, and and then we
I
limit
wouldn't think
the.
it would be just 2 weeks, but.
Yeah, well, really, yeah, you know what I mean, 3 months or 2 months.
Exactly, I think we're talking about several months is
Yeah.
what we're looking at. That would be my guess.
That's my only concern to that.
Yeah.
Would be just make sure we don't limit ourselves.
I mean, honestly, I feel like it's gonna take 5 or 6 months potentially to find.
I'm trying to remember, so let's see.
Well, again, it depends on if you have a current, somebody who's currently employed who has, notification period, but, that's gonna be factored in as well, so,
Right.
typically, if you can get something done in 3 or 4 months, I think it'll be on the quicker side.
Yeah, but I mean, your situation with Fairhaven took several months.
Took
So I mean,
took
yeah,
4
so I mean,
months.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, we have to be realistic, this isn't
4
gonna be.
months plus then the waiting period per the contract.
Yeah,
is-
exactly, oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so when I think what I was thinking is, there are a lot of people who've had positions eliminated or shifted due to
Correct.
budget cuts and other things, or people have moved, so they may be available potentially. And as we're thinking about an interim, there are interims out there that just do this, they're retired,
Right.
they did this as a job, and they don't do it as a job anymore, they only do it for a month or two. There are people like that too. I was just thinking, as we're looking for an interim, it makes more sense to me to try to approach folks who may be looking for something permanent, possibly, as opposed to only bringing in someone we know is not possible.
Yeah.
That's where I was.
Oh, no, I just, again, it's more just, I don't wanna limit it, because I just don't wanna be in that situation where we're basically reaching out to 3 specific candidates that we're thinking about, as opposed to having 30 people apply. It just limits us to, at least that's how I see it. So as long as the intern's going through a full process, I have personally no problems with that, but.
Is one of the first steps to have the job put in the MMA, the job bank there, I would think?
We need to get the job description right, and we can't vote on that tonight.
No, but finalized job description should be the first thing probably on our
Exactly.
list.
Exactly. And I spoke with Kate, our attorney, and they can go through it as well, once we have a
Great.
good working copy. She'll go through.
Make sure we have the lifting computers on there.
That's right. Right, the Carl clause.
Oh, God.
Yeah, just to make sure that we're tight there. And then we would be able to list it, so.
Advertise the
Yeah.
position.
I mean, we're probably at least a couple weeks away from that.
So, after we finalize the job description,
Mm-hmm.
we'll need to discuss and hire an interim town administrator.
Mm-hmm.
What does that process look like? So last time, the law firm just did it for us, like, we weren't involved at all. They just said, we have someone, they're willing to do it, that was it.
It does not need to be a formal process. I spoke with Kate about that
Okay.
as well. I mean, that's what happened last time. It was just the law firm did
Found
it. And
someone,
it
right.
was someone who had been town administrator
Correct.
here before, so it was a very simple process. So she said it's, we identify someone that we think can handle our interim
So
basis.
the law firm can do that for us?
She said she could,
Okay.
but that wasn't really something that they specialized in. Our
I see.
prior law firm, I think, did that more often.
Okay,
So, I don't think this is gonna take a law firm doing recruitment.
No,
for-
no, I was just wondering, I was
Yeah.
more wondering process, because typically when we're interviewing and negotiating contracts and things, the candidates, potential candidates and all of that is discussed in, executive session until we get to the finalists.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different in an
Yep.
interim situation, so I wasn't sure procedurally how that works with a board of 5, instead of the law firm
We
saying,
would-
this
we
is who
could-
we're hiring.
We'd still do that in executive.
You could still do that piece in executive,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then you just can negotiate and then do the open meeting vote on that
That's,
piece? I don't know how that works.
that was my understanding.
Do you know?
That was my understanding when I was on the phone with Kate
Yeah,
today.
I think the only question I have, Eric, I guess, is whether you, if the full board is gonna interview a interim person, do you have to do it publicly? I would just, if you wanna
Yeah, that
confirm that with
maybe.
Kate,
It's a good question.
you might wanna just confirm that with Kate. The rest
Yeah.
of it can be done, just like you're hiring, a regular town
Right,
administrator.
and she said you don't
negotiations will
have
all-
to, then I guess.
And then how do
does
you
that-
pick
I
one?
think,
Right.
do we need to,
That's the point, I guess.
I think we would need to determine whether the interim is just an interim or if we're looking long-term. 'Cause
I
if
don't think
we're-
you're gonna know that.
Well, but if we're having like a firm, or if we're just getting someone to come in interim, then we probably don't need, the full onslaught of interviews, like the last time. They just kind of said, this person's available.
Right, but
Do you
how does
want
it get, I guess my question is, how does the person, let's say each one of us knows someone, I have no idea, but let's say each one of us knows someone that we think could do this. How do you do that?
I would suggest that if we had 3 possibilities, Kyle Pike has met with one person who's interested. Kim has met with a second person who's interested. Dawn has met with a third person, okay? We bring those 3 names before the board, and we interview them in a public meeting.
Yeah.
Okay,
We could, but just to be clear, Kate said there's no required process to interview people in a public meeting for this. This is just an interim position.
the question just was, how do we pick someone? That was my question.
Yeah.
So like, you have John Doe,
It
Jane
can literally
Smith,
just be
and,
deliberation in an executive session. You don't need to put.
interesting, okay.
I mean, we can talk about that.
I just wasn't sure.
And get more feedback from,
Okay.
from Kate, but this is,
I mean, to me, either is fine.
Yeah,
don't
I
know
mean,
if we-
the-
I don't know if we want like comment, I think we just wanna talk about it and decide. So whether that's executive or
Yeah,
public,
And
doesn't
to
matter
me, a lot depends upon, if 4 weeks from now, we've got one name, then we
Well,
bring
yeah,
one
there's
name
a,
forward.
then there's one.
If we've got 6 names,
Yeah,
then
no,
it's
that's
a
true.
different situation.
Kate made it sound like you don't put interims through interviews.
Rigorous
in
process,
public.
understood, understood. You
you're-
select one,
Right, you're just hiring
whoever's available,
somebody.
whoever's willing to do
You
it,
mean
whoever's
you
in the
can
price range.
actually do normal, good business moving forward with an
Oh,
interim
Carl.
to run the town,
Right,
Yes, I understand.
without the bureaucracy getting in the
Yeah.
way?
right.
I'm just trying to follow the rules, Carl.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not pointing at you.
All right. Those were my questions.
Do we know what you said they can search for an intern, but they don't typically do that. Do we know, is that a cost, or
Probably.
is that part of it?
Yeah, and I got the impression
It's
they
gonna be
don't want to
additional
do that.
cost.
Okay.
And honestly, why do we want them to pick out who we want?
Let's see how we do.
Yeah,
Well,
I feel like
I
there's,
feel like they probably know more. than we do. No more
Maybe.
people.
Maybe.
Not necessarily more
we
about
know
the town,
people
but more
who would be
people.
familiar with Kingston.
True.
Well, and frankly, I think you can use Kate or somebody in the firm to help vet the people who submit.
Could,
true.
If there was somebody who's
Right, because they might know
retired
them.
or has been in this business for a while.
Right.
Okay,
I guess as a real-world example, we've got this resume from this person, okay? How do we want to approach that?
We can discuss that in executive, because that's a
Okay.
person. And then, well, let's say we discuss that person and everyone's like, hey, this is great, we want to move forward. Then we would make, and I'll double check this with Kate. I'll make
Sure,
sure that,
okay.
but this was my understanding from the phone call, was that we can make a decision and then we would vote in public session to,
well, you would
Hire
probably,
the
someone's
person.
probably gonna have to reach out to that person. And,
well, yeah.
kind
No, I
of
mean, we'd go
iron
through
out the-
it. Right. You would go through that process. You would reach out to the person, find out more about them.
Right.
We could bring them into, you could bring them into an executive session.
Or do a
and
background
interview
check.
Right. And I'll double check all of this, but
Okay.
And
That was my
again,
understanding.
I use that as an example. I don't think that's something that needs to be done overnight. But at the same time, I
We gotta
think
get
it's
moving.
easy to get in a rut of kicking the can down the road.
Yep.
And we don't want to do that.
no, we can't. We do have a clock ticking.
Because I'm trying to tell Keith that he can leave here October 1st. Because I know he's only a telephone call away.
Yeah.
So, any other thoughts? So it sounds like we're in agreement that we would at least start on our own with our own search committee. The exact makeup of what that search committee would look like, we don't know yet, but, we can make a determination on that.
Can we put that on the next
Mhm.
agenda, maybe?
Oh,
Not
yeah.
the
Not the
12th,
12th.
but the one
Yeah, definitely not
after
the
that, I
12th.
guess.
Can I just ask you a quick
Yeah.
question?
Yeah,
Trish, do we have any public hearings on the 26th agenda? So I'm just
Try to
wondering,
roll it back.
well, I'm just wondering, does it make sense at all? Our normal agendas are the 12th and the 26th this month. The 12th, we're going to have a quick
yeah.
remote meeting for most of us anyways because of the National Night Out. Does it make any sense at all to move the board meeting up to the 19th?
I'm gonna be away, but I can join remote that week.
I think I'm away that week, too.
Okay, I'm just
I
trying to.
know what you're saying. I
Okay.
mean,
I could, but I'd probably have to be remote for that meeting.
Well, that wasn't a very good idea then.
You and I can sit here, Keith.
It was a good idea, we just all planned our trips
No,
around
I
the
get
off
it.
week.
No, I completely
Nah, that's
understand.
August.
that's recovery week for my son from his tonsils getting.
Ooh, yeah,
so-
that's
and I'm
tough.
gonna someone has to be home with him.
Yeah,
So,
that's no fun.
I do think we need to do something before the 26th. I
That's
think
fine. I
that
agree.
we're gonna need to get that search committee started. So,
Well,
I mean,
Well,
what about
To me,
okay,
isn't the immediate search committee sitting right here? That the five of us?
well, I guess the only question is, do you want to add, police chief, fire chief, town clerk, anybody else besides the people who are on this board?
For an interim, I'm not really sure you need to.
No.
not for
interim,
interim, talking
no,
about they're talking
the
about the
permanent.
actual hire.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I think we have more, so I actually think you have more time on that. So like my immediate focus is on the interim,
yeah,
because the full-time hire can
Mhm.
wait a little more.
So what we might need, some of that interim would be done by executive session. We're talking about specific people.
But I still think we need to finalize the job description, because whether that's the permanent hire or the interim,
Yeah.
we want it to be clear expectations of what the role is
Yeah,
and what goes under it. I would just like it, I'm not saying it's going to work, we could give them what we did in 2020 and say, this is pretty much what the job is. That's fine, as long as we're okay with doing that, I'm okay with that. I know there's grammatical things we need to deal with, but at least
we
then
may-
they would have something to understand, like, this is what Kingston's town administrator does. Because we don't have a bylaw, we only have your contract. So that's another option too, is pulling the description of responsibilities just out of the contract and saying, here, this is essentially what the job is.
in terms of having that ready for the interim,
We have the old one,
yeah.
That's
So, okay.
I'm
So-
okay with that.
Okay,
Well, I certainly will provide the full committee my comments
Sure.
Yeah.
almost immediately.
so what I would suggest is that everybody send their comments back to Tina, and then Tina would aggregate those and then send them back out to us. I gotta make sure that's not violating open meeting law. Yeah, okay.
No, it's
It's
just, we
just
just.
a
You
document.
can't
Talk about
you can't get into a dialogue about,
Yeah, okay.
that's all.
But she can compile everyone's changes.
Absolutely.
And then
yeah.
send it to us before our next meeting. It's like,
Yeah.
it would be considered meeting materials.
So in my opinion, the first order of business is identify what we're gonna do with an interim, and we do have names that we need to talk about in executive session, not in public.
Okay. But you still have an additional item too on the agenda as well.
Yes, we do. So the next item here is adding an additional signer for the weekly warrant. So Dawn's been my backup, but Dawn can't do Thursdays, and Town Hall's not open on Fridays anymore. So,
yeah, the Friday thing killed me, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'm in the city on Wednesday and Thursdays for work, so.
Add that to the list of complaints.
That's one.
That's 3, that's fine.
so I guess the
That's
question
okay.
is if Carl or Kim could be a backup. And the problem is I'm going away tomorrow for the weekend, and then I'm back, what's that?
That's a weekend for him.
I know.
Welcome
Well, I
to-
work.
Welcome to mainland.
I can work from wherever. So, I'm not going up on a Friday night.
He's going away for the weekend, he'll be back September 30th.
Carl, what's your availability like on Thursdays?
I'm glad to be a backup as long as nobody else wants the position.
You're primary, you're not backup.
I'm glad.
I move to add Carl Pike as an additional signer of the weekly warrant in the event that the chair is unable to do so.
Second,
All those,
Should we say replacing Don Alcombright?
I think so.
Yeah.
Just because we can only have one?
Yep.
yep,
Okay.
all right, included that, Tricia. All right, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Yeah, we were
we're all
remote
here now,
anymore.
so, yeah.
400.
That's unanimous. We don't have any meeting minutes or
Nope.
town admin report. No comments. Next regular meeting is next Tuesday.
Does Keith want to say anything, or is he good?
Did you want to say anything?
Since we talked about
No.
your contract, okay. All right.
All right,
Will we need to, not to circle back, but if we're getting edits of this and everything, will we need to actually meet, or can that get just posted?
What,
The
job description? We'll have to vote on a final job
Yeah,
description.
So do we want to
But
tentatively
that's
put?
not for the interim, that's for the full-time hire, which I think we want to
Oh,
establish.
I thought
that-
we still wanted to use that for the,
I'll just,
okay,
it's
all right,
fine.
never mind then.
I think we need it for the posting, and I think we want to establish that if we're doing a working group, we
Yeah.
would want to establish that as well.
yeah.
Okay, then we don't need to do, I was gonna say, do we wanna have a meeting, like an executive next week, but that's, we probably don't need to have that much of a
I think we need to wait and see what happens
Yeah.
with the interim, because we might need it, we might want to have it for a contract with an interim.
Sure,
just,
maybe, possibly.
But we need to see how fast that happens.
We didn't
too.
last time, but
You didn't?
nope.
Yeah.
Okay,
It was essentially, you will serve as town administrator, and this is the amount of time, and this is the amount of money.
okay,
Pretty,
all right.
seemed pretty standard.
Okay, then,
So move to adjourn and, actually move to adjourn open session and recess to executive session, not to return to open session for the purpose of to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, town administrator.
Second?
all right, it's a roll call. All those in favor, Eric, aye?
Kim, I.
Don, aye.
Carl Pike, aye.
All right,
Okay.
we are adjourned to executive.